Refusing to abandon the people she protected, Félicité chose to die alongside them. She gave meaning to the word sacrifice. Who was she? This great woman, Félicité NIYITEGEKA, now recognized as a national heroine of Rwanda, was an auxiliary of the apostolate and worked at Gisenyi. At the time of the tragic genocide perpetrated against the Tutsis in Rwanda in 1994, she pushed her compassion to the sacrifice of her life. Herself a Hutu, she refused to be separated from the victims, the Tutsi, hunted and exterminated by Hutu extremists. She tried to save all those who came to take refuge at her home, Centre Saint-Pierre. And when she could not save her Tutsi brothers and sisters, she decided to accompany them to the end of their lives. In 1994, Félicité NIYITEGEKA was about 60 years old. She was an auxiliary of the apostolate at Gisenyi in the Nyundo diocese. During the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, she was the director of the Centre Saint-Pierre. She welcomed the Tutsi refugees to the center and helped many of them escape death by sending them to Zaire, known today as the Democratic Republic of the Congo. A survivor explains, "She opened a passage in the fence and we went through it. After 20 minutes, we were already in Zaire." When the perpetrators of the genocide, known as the Interahamwe, came to know of Félicité's actions in favor of the Tutsi, they decided to stop her mission and murder the Tutsi who remained in the Centre Saint-Pierre. Knowing the danger that might subsequently befall Félicité, her brother, a colonel in the National Army, sent her a vehicle and an escort of soldiers to evacuate her. But Félicité refused to leave those who were with her, so she sent him a short letter saying simply that she preferred to die with the Tutsi people who had found refuge in the Centre Saint-Pierre. During the following days, she continued to facilitate the move of the Tutsis, helping them to cross the border in order to flee to Zaire. Unfortunately, on April 21, 1994, the Interahamwe militia attacked the Centre Saint-Pierre and they piled the Tutsi into a minibus to transport them to the place called Commune Rouge, where the mass graves were planned. Commune Rouge means the red place, or the place where blood was shed. Even in that terrible moment, Félicité continued to encourage those who were with her to stay firm in their faith. To those who were despicably sentenced to death, she said that it was the right moment to witness their faith in God. The Interahamwe wanted to save Félicité because she was Hutu, and furthermore she had a brother in the National Army. Along the way to the Commune Rouge, one of the militiamen told her, "Aren't you afraid of dying? You're going to regret this. You're going to be killed in the end." Nevertheless, until the end, Félicité encouraged, comforted, and accompanied the victims. Once at the Commune Rouge, the Interahamwe began to slaughter the Tutsi brutally. After killing 30, they tried to persuade Félicité to be reasonable. The militia were amazed by the words that Félicité courageously uttered. "I have no reason to live when you have killed my brothers and sisters." This is significant because the African philosophy of Ubuntu says, "I am because of you, we are because of each other." After these final words, Félicité was shot to death by Omar Serushago, the head of the Interahamwe militia in Gisenyi province. Among those who were killed that day were 6 other auxiliaries of the apostolate. Omar Serushago was found guilty of genocide and crimes against humanity. During the pre-sentencing hearing, he expressed his remorse at length and openly, asking for forgiveness from the victims of his crimes and the entire people of Rwanda. In addition to this act of contrition, he appealed for national reconciliation in the country. He was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment in Mali's Koulikoro prison in the outskirts of Bamako. He was released several months before he died in December 2013. Félicité's companions who survived the Rwandan genocide remember well her brother's attempt to save her. They say that at a time long before, Félicité received a message from her brother, Colonel Alphonse, who was in the military camp of Bigogwe. The message was to ask Félicité to leave Centre Saint-Pierre in order to join him, because Alphonse had just been informed that the center would be soon set on fire. This was Félicité's reply. Dear brother, thank you for your desire to save me, but instead of saving my life by abandoning the 43 people to die, I prefer to die with them. Pray for us that we may arrive in heaven, and say goodbye for me to our mother, brothers, and sisters. Once arrived in heaven, I will pray for you to God. Thank you again for thinking of me, and if God saves us as we hope, we'll see one another tomorrow. Your sister, Félicité. The vehicle and the soldiers appointed to evacuate Félicité returned to Bigogwe without her. This response demonstrates Félicité's unconditional love, which goes beyond love of family and those closest to us. While she begins her letter by celebrating the love her brother Alphonse has for her, Félicité then goes beyond or transcends this love and her love for kinship for a greater one, compassion towards God's children, the most forsaken under the circumstances. I prefer to die with them. Félicité was willing to die with those who were so unjustly condemned to death because she believed in her heart that death was the strongest testimony to her faith in God, in the people she loved, and in what she knew to be true. Despite the wishes of her brother, she believed what Dr. Martin Luther King once said, "A man who won't die for something is not fit to live." Félicité came to understand something many of us are afraid to face, that love is stronger than death. Once in heaven, I will pray for you to God. She loved so deeply and freely that death itself could not prevent her from loving, even into eternity. Obviously, it is thanks to her strong faith that Félicité chose to give her life to God for his people. Nobody took her life away because she had the opportunity to save it. Having realized that she would fail to save her companions, she decided to accompany them up to the time of the end, sparing them not from death, but from despair. This is the refrain that is seen in all testimonies reported until now. She told the refugees, "I will accompany you because I don't want you to die in despair." Whenever she saw those innocents, she always comforted them by the words that express her unwavering faith. Don't you know our real destination? Through her words full of faith, hope, and charity, the people could find confidence in fearful circumstances. May she continue to pray to God for each of us, that we may someday find the strength and courage to love without fear and trust without doubting. This is a short passage from the testimony of Immaculée Tuyisenge. I'm telling you about Félicité because we lived together and she was my mentor. After the outbreak of war, just before the genocide, she urged us to make the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi our own. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Félicité, through her life, was able to translate this beautiful prayer into the language of everyday life, the daily martyrdom. She often asked us this question: are not the discord and lack of unity in Rwandans truly regrettable? What I learned from her was her concern for unity, especially during the 2 weeks we spent together in those tragic times. She sought peace at any price. She reminded us of Christ's teaching on the necessity of unity, that all may be one. She asked us, if God asked you to sacrifice yourself for the unity of Rwandans, who among you is willing to do it? If you really are the auxiliaries of the apostleship, who feels ready to sacrifice herself for peace to reign in Rwanda? When she asked this kind of question, we looked at each other, but nobody raised a hand. She said, I am ready to die for peace. All the wealth in the world cannot be compared with the happiness of living together happily united. Saint Marguerite de Youville. Félicité not only gave herself in death, her whole life was devoted to her neighbors. She gave upbringing advice to parents and encouraged children to study, even paying for their tuition fees. On the hill where she grew up, Félicité was always quoted as a role model. Tormented by the escalating conflicts between Rwandans, during her trainings, she asked people to teach peace, love, and non-discrimination. Her little sister tells us, Félicité had sown in us the seeds of love, so much so that we had no idea to which ethnic group we belonged. We were just aware of simply being children of God. Thus, her sister knew when the genocide broke out that Félicité was going to die. She couldn't bear seeing others die before her own eyes. Her sacrifice is engraved in the hearts of all those she helped and saved. The survivors of NIYITEGEKA thank her for her heroism and her strength of character. All wish for Félicité NIYITEGEKA to be declared a saint. In 2001, the government raised her to the rank of national heroine. To lay down your life for your neighbor, whatever his or her origin, is more than just an act of faith. It is an act of pure humanity.